Is it set up?
Yeah.
Sweet. Welcome to the Arizona PHP Meetup. Thanks for letting me use your laptop for the introduction, and thank you, Gordon, for setting up the introduction. All right. azPHP is sponsored by Pagely. You can talk to this guy with the Pagely shirt if you want to find out more about them, but they're awesome, and they provide us a space every month. And they're cool people, too. Gordon works for Pagely there in the back as well. Typical agenda as normal. I don't know if we have any announcements. I'm going to find out because this is my first time looking at what is written on the next slide. So we might have announcements. We might have a trivia question. There definitely will be a presentation by Chris tonight. And then afterwards, if you want to hang out, we usually go find somewhere to eat and drink and whatnot afterwards. All right, so who's first timers? Matt is, Tyler is, John is, Justin is, and that John is also first time. Welcome. Anything stand out today that brought you here? You had a friend that's presenting.
You made me come, yeah.
Maybe. Cool. Thank you, Chris. Good job. Now you belong to us. Justin, Tyler, John.
I've been working with Adam.
Sweet.
Actually, doing PHP that pays you money. It's like, oh, I definitely want to learn.
That's a pretty smart guy, too. So yeah. Sweet. What about you, John? What brings you here tonight?
I was coming for a data science meeting, which got canceled 2 weeks ago. They said, we have a PhD.
Happy accident.
And so I said,
all right. Well, ask questions. If you want to hang out anytime between the meetups, many of us are in the AZ Devs Slack channel. We have a PHP channel specifically in there. If you want to hang out, talk, or post messages about random things, which is usually what happens. And Chris answers all questions that you ask, right?
for $1.
For $1.
Not bad.
Anything exciting going on? Any new projects that you're working on? Something you want to share? Jobs that you have available? Jobs that you need? This is open lifetime.
I am looking for another client. I like that too. So I'm working with Adam, looking for other stuff. And so I've just gotten into Laravel, and it's pretty cool. My friend and I were discussing the whole convention versus configuration thing today. I'm coming from years ago Rails, and I love that idea at the time, and then it bites you sometimes, so it's fun to see how much Laravel is, and I haven't gotten the fun of having it bite me yet, and I look forward to those days.
It'll happen at least once.
Probably more than that.
Cool. All right. Anyone else have something to share?
Sweet.
All right.
What about you?
Iterate.
Oh, how do I use your web browser on this computer? No, don't show.
What do you want?
That's true. So last month we had a very interesting presentation where I attempted to present remotely, and it worked only partially well. But I talked about iterators and generators. And since then, I've started working on an open source library for generators and transformative operations on generators. So I would love a code review. That'd be great if you want to. Jeremiah/iterate. I'll post it in the meetup page in the comments at some point tonight in case you want to look at it. But that's all there. That's all I had to say. It's been random, fun, downtime, coding to do. Especially since I haven't been doing PHP in my day job right now. Like having some time to do PHP, just like to keep my sanity is good because that's just how I am. All right, back to here. All right, anything else? Sweet, moving on. All right, we do have a trivia question. This one's from Gordon, yes? Okay.
Yes.
Why is the following code valid?
Oh, it is. Well, it says is. It is valid.
Even with just one
But why is it valid? Which is this is a typo I made today.
All right.
And I'm like, I didn't get a.
Oh.
Get the expected error.
Oh, I know why. I know why.
Is arbitrary class just any class?
What?
Is that what you mean? Just any class?
It in fact could be a non-existent class.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know why. I got it.
Anybody else?
I'll give everyone a hint. If you tried to do this prior to PHP 5.3, it would fail.
Alright. What's that? Because who is a defined function or arbitrary class? It in fact doesn't matter if arbitrary class is defined or not. But if foo wasn't defined, it would give you not a parser, but a runtime. Of undefined.
Is it something to do with type defining?
Nope.
No.
Well, it's the colon operator.
Yeah.
What's a colon do?
I mean, I use it for like if, but I don't.
But there's no question mark.
Yeah, there's no question mark. So
Throw that idea out.
yeah, I don't think. I'm sure that's what it is, but I don't know what the colon operator is off the top of my head. So
It's not an operator.
it's not.
Any guesses? It is.
Can I
Yep.
do it? I don't know. I didn't see the answer. Okay. This is actually a label for a go-to statement. Yes?
Yes.
So it was probably like, a typo to a static call, but
It was.
it's still valid because PHP's parsing this as a label, which, yeah.
PHP still has go to.
Yeah.
What do you mean still has? That was a recent feature.
So interestingly, you can use these labels to label any part of your code, even if you never use GoTo, right? Just because you feel like you're writing complicated code, but it needs to remain in the same scope. So you can just label up the sections, and you can put curly brackets around that to really define those sections, even though they do nothing for you. But you can.
That's a tricky one, Gordon and Josh. That's good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Too bad I wasn't there, huh?
Oh, I know what it is.
Oh man, that's a good one. All right. Well, I'm going to hand it over to Chris here just a minute. I do want to remind you that I have brought a PHP elephant tonight. At some point, we'll hand out raffle tickets. All right, we got them. Wow. All right. At some point has passed. You have raffle tickets. And at the end, we'll do a drawing for it. Thank you, Gordon. Chris, take it away.
Hello. All right, so I'm here to talk about Sai Shell. I'm going to preface this by saying this isn't a super in-depth, very well-prepared thing. Last month, about a week before the meeting, Gordon's like, we have no presenter who can do this. I'm like, I could throw something together with Sai Shell, and then it quickly turned out that I couldn't make it last month. So I was like, all right, I'll do it the next month. And it was one of those like, I'll just throw something together. So I never really felt like putting a ton of effort into this, but it's not going to be bad, I hope. That being said, I am not an expert in Sai Shell, but I think I'll give you a good overview of what it is and how you can use it in your day-to-day projects. What? Oh, yes, so being not super well prepared this morning, I get a tweet from Justin Heileman, I think is how you pronounce it. Bob the Cow. Did we lose video?
Oh, it's back. Sometimes things
Just this, just kind of out of the blue. I think I followed him on Twitter and maybe he saw that and responded by like, good luck tonight. So I think I'm under a little bit of pressure here.
Bob the Cow is also the mustache.
Oh, cool. And I just learned he's now working for a Dropbox on using paper, working on paper, which is this kind of document. It's a note-taking. It's a little bit way light Google Docs, very, very light. But it's
he's done open source contributions.
Yes. So, yes, I'm talking about Sai Shell. What is Sai Shell? It is the interactive PHP debugger and repl for PHP. Repl is a read eval print loop. Thank you. And what that means is user provides some input that is read. That input is evaluated as code, and the output is printed back to the user and loops over and over again repeatedly. I don't want to go into too much detail about why PHP or why Sai Shell was created. There's a pretty good.
I can ask one question.
Okay.
That will help.
Sure.
Why not use PHP-R?
Dash A.
Yes.
I was gonna get there. It's so some might consider PHP-A a repl, but in fact it's missing one of the key important pieces, that is the print part, and it's just a pain to work with in general.
And it dies.
And it quickly fails hard all the time. There's a presentation if you go to psysh.org under tutorials and guides. I'll add this to our meeting notes later. This PHP for Pirates presentation from Mr. Bob the Cow himself. If you want to read through this one day, and it goes into a little more detail on repls and other languages in there, like Python and Ruby, and how they have actual decent repls. So I'll let you do that. For now, I'm going to just kind of show you what it does and how to use it. So I have a project already set up here. I've set something up, set up just an environment in Docker for us to mess around with. Can people see that?
Yeah.
So you've got a project, an existing project, and you want to start debugging it. You can install Sai Shell from Composer. It's pretty straightforward. But I've got my project here. It's already set up with Composer and everything. So simply install it. As a dev dependency. This is like the only thing that is actually going to take a second. But you can install it right to the project itself. And come on, internet. Almost there. Live coding. Any minute now. There we go. All right, and once it's installed, you can execute it by hitting your vendor bin directory and running Sai Shell. And you've done it, you've run it. Now you're in Sai Shell. But what can you do with Sai Shell? That's the important thing. Bring up my notes. Unlike PHP-A, I think one of the most powerful things here is tab completion. of just about any PHP function you can think of. So like array filter. It'll
Hey, Chris, you have a little bit louder.
talk louder.
The air conditioner.
Okay. First of all, you've got full on tab completion of any PHP commands. It'll let you tab complete it like echo. Then I don't know what's a command. Print. That alone is very effective at helping you navigate code and figure stuff out. Another important feature that will help you quickly figure out figure out things with your code is well, first off, let's actually show you what. Nope. So once you're in the shell, if you type help, you can see a list of all its available functions. It looks like a short list, but believe me, these are very powerful features. So again, I've got this set up in my application, so we can just start using code in here. I mean, you could write straight PHP code, and it'll, as you see, reads my input, evaluates it as code, and then immediately outputs the output of that code. And it could be as simple as math if you want. It has syntax highlighting to give you kind of indications of your return types, which is convenient and helps you kind of identify what you're looking at.
You have to write echo, or can you just write the string?
I believe you can just write the string high. So it evaluates exactly what's on that line. Going further, we can actually use variables as you would. And then, I don't know, string ref food. No. Works straightforward. I tabbed after I put the semicolon, but yes, very well. All those stream functions. But again, we are in our application, and so we can do things like use namespaces very easily and effectively. So I'm going to use /stash, and then I'm going to go ahead and instantiate. This is just one of my repos for, it's a simple caching library that I have set up. So let's go ahead and initialize the, let's do the memcache.
I just have a question.
Okay.
So you didn't have to include it before you could use something? How does that work?
What do you mean? Oh, because I pulled it into the project directly, it automatically reads and detects the autoloaded files. So it's already namespaced to the project.
Okay, so whatever you had in Composer, it loads.
Correct. That's a very, and yeah, just to see what I've got in Composer here. I'm in my library and autoload here. So since this is autoloading, it will automatically pull that in and let you use that. Let's new up an instance of our library, of our stashing library. What's the syntax? Connection. Add server. Now we're going to start getting into some of the interesting stuff. So within the this running environment, in this Scishow environment, I have a memcache variable. As you see, it returned what that variable is, which is an object, a /driver's memcached object. As before, it has auto-completion, so it can memcached arrow and see my available methods on that function. So we can just call right away, call one of our functions. But what if you don't know what those functions do? I mean, you might have an idea, probably put something into the cache, but what are the parameters? What does it take? From there, we can use some of the powerful introspection, and what's the word? Reflection powers that come with Sai Shell. First of all, if we go back to our list of functions, you've got this ls or list method that will let us list local instance or class variables, methods, and constants. So we can ls memcache our variable, our instantiated method, and that again gives us relatively similar output as the tab completion. But if we take a look at the available options on ls, we have a lot we can do with that. The two ones that I use the most are the all and the list, or long parameters. With that, as you can see, is we can ls all or a and long or -l. And that gives us a nice output showing what our object actually contains and the properties and methods on it. So you can see it has a memcache property and again all these functions. With that, you can see, for example, put has the parameters that put accepts. That's a nice way of getting that information. To go a little further, getting back to our list.
Are you able to call private
I don't think you can do that directly this way. There are some things I might get into that kind of will get us there. So on top of the, besides the ls function, we also have this doc command that we can run. And what that will let us do is run doc on our object. And then there's no documentation for the method, the object itself, but on our put. So we tell it doc, our object, colon, and then the method name. And it actually pulls data from the doc blocks of the file itself to let you see, to then give you the information for those parameters and the method. So the description on the doc block is put an item in the cache for a specified duration. The params it takes is the key, and the key's unique item identifier, data to cache, and the time in minutes until item expires. So that's all. That tells us a lot right there. So this property isn't like seconds, or it's not like a carbon instance or something like that. It's just the time in minutes. That's a ton of information that you glean without ever having to leave your terminal. If you want to go even further, we have the show command. And we can show our memcached object. This actually dumps the code, the file contents, the class contents itself. So if you need to go like really deep in and like start inspecting actual classes and the code itself, that's a quick and easy way to pull that up. And where is it? Did I pass it? Yeah, put. So there's our put object. As you can see, the doc block and all the information we had. To go a little more, so the doc command works on our classes that we built ourselves, but even more than that, you can get the documentation of native PHP classes and functions. So let's take a look at the memcache put command. Set, yep. So the first time you run that command, it's gonna yell at you and say that the PHP manual is not found, and to go here. Okay, there's another, sorry, this is gonna be another download thing, but this should be a lot faster. And if you read, it says the doc command is great for documenting source code and stuff, but what you can do is you can take any one of these language files. It's actually just an SQLite database, and drop it into the proper location for your operating system. Since we're Linux, we're going to stick it in .local share Sai Shell, psysh. So I'm going to exit the Sai Shell for a second to local. What was it? Oh, I probably need to create the directory. Local share. And then we can just wget or curl whatever that file into that directory, manually download, copy, paste, whatever you want. If we go back into, did I? Yes, you're right. Thank you. What's it called? That's it. Now we can dock PHP built-in memcache set method, and this feature alone is one of my favorite features. But as you can see, we've now got the official PHP documentation for this object. It's not complete in depth, doesn't have all the comments that you might see at the bottom, not that those are terribly helpful, but I have been on a plane without internet connection coding with this installed locally and still able to access the full, good enough PHP documentation to help me get past like those, oh crap, what were those parameters? What order do they go in? What types does it accept? What does that return, et cetera, et cetera. I love this feature of this alone. But again, just any kind of array filter, whatever you name it, it's amazing. Let's see. Like any good shell, we can access our history. So you can see all the things we've been doing within the Sai shell, and this is continued. If you do something, exit the shell and come back, it's preserved across sessions or whatever you would call those. You can, which one?
No.
Oh, not the variable, the history of that, yes. But okay, so here we've got, so here's where we actually created that instance, history items 8 and 9. So if you can do history, I don't remember the exact syntax, but we can do, yes, you can replay, but before you replay, you have to do, not the first range, so history, show, what was it, 8 and 9? I think that works. 8, 9, forget the syntax. 8, 9. Yeah. I don't think you can get help on the one command. Oh, there it is. ... Show 8 ... 9. That's 8 and 9, and then you can apply replay to it. And now we've got our memcached variable again. Because it just reran that code from those 2 lines. Again, extremely useful when you're like, crap, I did like 10 lines in a row that I don't want to have to retype or copy paste or remember how to do. It's like, just get it from your history. And you can grep your history if you're like, I don't know where that was in history. There's all, or I guess it wasn't, it was lowercase. I think you can do insensitive match and stuff, but it's a great way, again, to get around through your history of commands. Sometimes you're working on your code and something's not going quite as fast as you want it to. So it has a nice built-in time it method. So just pass time it and whatever it is you want to do. I'm just going to use sleep. Command took however long. It's again useful if you are doing a lot of things and you're like, I want to know what of these is taking a long time. You can start timing them to figure out what they are, or just to benchmark a couple of things if you're like, I wonder if this way works better than that way. List, profiler, showing the source of things. The Scishow has a bunch of magic variables set. The two I use the most are underscore, $_ underscore. That's not going to be good. Which, oops. So you do a command. Oh man, I need to. So you've done some code, you got some output. You just need to reference that again. You can do so with the $_ underscore variable. Obviously, when you're debugging, it's not always going to be green, happy path things. Things are going to start going wrong, and exceptions will start being thrown, errors will start coming at you, and that's probably why you're in the shell in the first place, is you're trying to fix a problem. Scishow has very useful exception tools where, let's just throw an exception for now. And it tells you exception with message. This is an exception, like obviously. This isn't a great example. We can get into more detail in a minute, but it has the WTF command, which will actually give you the stack trace of the last exception thrown. And it's, yeah, by default, it's kind of trimmed, and you can always do WTF-A to see the whole thing. Or what I like is you can do WTF and then any combination of exclamations and question marks will append additional, or add additional lines to your stack trace. So it should get like 1 extra line there, 2 extra lines. I guess it's maybe exponentially growing or something. It's just a fun little create command. But similarly, you've got the magic variable underscore E, which will give you the actual exception instance itself, the instance of the exception. So then you can do stuff like get message on that exception to see and start interacting with the exception itself. All right, let's get to something a little more interesting, I think, maybe. I don't know, I hope it's all interesting. But I have,
You can talk about how to refresh, if you refresh your code. So that's one of the biggest errors I have. Like take your,
what do you mean refresh if you refresh your
you
code?
go and you're in the repl, and then you go in and make some changes to your code. You have to exit out, come back in to get it to load in the newest code.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a hack that makes that, like, make it so they can?
If there is, I don't know. My default way is just exit and re-enter, because I believe it's because it's like actually loading the application into memory. So it's the state of the application is now in memory, and you're interacting with that in memory. Is there a hot? I don't know. I don't know either. If somebody knows, that'd be great. Run kit extension. Okay. But no, as far as I know, there is no way to just like hot reload that. Python does interest it.
The big number one reason why Python always going to work is because it has a basic compile. It tries to make it so it can reload one thing. It's way easier to be like,
Start from scratch, right? And to be honest,
you're already debugging.
that's the way PHP is designed, is to be just kill, like run once, start over, run again, start over, run again, start over. Trying to do something like that would probably be a big pain in the butt.
I've seen that with the built-in development server, web server too.
Okay.
Like Laravel. If there's certain instances where you make a change, like some environment variable, something like that, and load all that information from memory, you have to stop the server and restart it again.
So that's interesting that you bring that up. This is something I've meant to mention, is the Sai Shell itself is actually what is powering things like Artisan, Tinker, and Symfony's, whatever one, yeah, and like there's a WordPress CLI. Integrate, here it is. Here's one of his official lists of actual implementations of Sai Shell. But there's you. No?
No, that's Symfony 2 is where it stops, and they're on Symfony 4 now.
Right, okay. I haven't used Symfony 4 in any real depth yet, so. Okay. But yes, you may have inadvertently used Sai Shell in the past without even knowing it. In fact, yeah, I won't do that now, but I was going to spin up a fresh Laravel instance in Artisan Tinker, and right at the top says Sai Shell. Like, you may have just overlooked it, because I don't think.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where you really, really don't want to reinvent the wheel, because the code for Scishow.
Yeah. All right, lost my train of thought. Oh, okay. So I have a PHP suite here that should pass. Why is it sticking? It should be real fast. I don't know. Maybe we can start debugging it. That wasn't my intent, but okay. Oops. Okay. Live coding, yay. What I was going to get at is let's just in the meantime, for the sake of making things work, bust open our memcache test here, and let's pick, oh, that's right. I forgot the way I do this project test. Actually, all right. So I'm not even 100% sure where we're going to end up in the code here. So that's actually kind of fun. Let us drop this magic line of code, and you can do this. So one of the saddest things I think about Sai Shell is it's completely tied to a terminal. You can't do, like, if you had like with Xdebug, you could run like your application in the web browser and then do your debugging. But obviously Xdebug comes with lots of overhead and pain in the ass to set up, and it's very fragile. That being said, it's a powerful tool. Please use it when you can. But with Sai Shell, I'm not aware of any way to like have code run in the browser and then do what we're about to do here. That is, you can, in anywhere in your code that in your project where you've installed Sai Shell, you can drop in this eval psy/sh method, and then run your code from the terminal.
Yeah.
I didn't save it, but okay. And what that did was it ran the code. When it hit this line, that line, it drops us into a Sai Shell with the state of the application at that point.
So that's the new die here.
Oh yes, so that presentation I mentioned talks about a big amount about how die and dumping, or dump and dying, is like the default go-to for most if not every PHP developer. And the whole point, like kind of what got to Sai Shell is, why do we still do that? It works. Why do people still do that? Even with these tools that have so much more power to them. And the gist of it is, it's simple and easy and quick to do. Whereas all these other tools take a lot to set up and maintain and keep going. Anyway, yes.
So this is essentially the same thing that I see, your bar dump, or you do it dump and die or whatever. Is there a way to take Sai Shell from the command line and launch your PHP process and add breakpoints in that way?
That's exactly what this is. Okay. Let me get to it. So we have inserted this eval Sai Shell at a point in our code. I'm not even sure where I exactly entered it. This was more or less just an arbitrary point in my code. Well, exactly. It tells us where it ended up in test traits, cacheable, PHP, line 65. One of the reasons why I say I don't know where is because the way I set up this project tests is that because it runs tests against multiple caching backends, Memcache, Redis, file, whatever, I set up a trait that just is used for all of those. And so I'm not 100% sure which backend we're using right now. However, let's start exploring from this point, our breakpoint that we inserted. We have, okay, let's see. So we've got a stash instance here at this stash. I may have to change the code slightly, but let me see if this is going to work as I think it is.
Yes, we run OS.
Right. So we have this. That's good. I was afraid we wouldn't for a second. What is this? This is, okay, so we're in an APCU test right now. And we can start using those commands like I said earlier. LA, this, what actions do we have with this? Hard to read, but of course, we're in the test suite, so we've got all the test methods and stuff available. Okay, I got a better one. Let's LSA this stash instead. Why isn't that working? Do we have stash? Oh, okay, maybe in the middle of testing wasn't the best place to put that. Okay, let's do ls dash list all properties. That's still probably not going to be a small list. Okay, this bugs me. Linux, it's ls-al for all list, but it's long here when I'm list long. It's okay. So we do have the stash there. So this stash, can we not? Is it protected? Is that what the problem is?
What's a variable?
It's a property. No, it's a variable. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Somebody asked earlier, can you run protected methods and stuff like that? If you prefix it with sudo, whatever you call.
Maybe sudo doesn't work with
Let's.
Yeah, it says it just takes code to execute.
Okay. But you should be able to inspect that property, just like any other property. Why isn't that working?
This is why we use xdebug.
It would have taken you as long as this presentation is to set up.
Yeah, well, one day.
And then you breathe wrong and it'll break.
The worst problem with xdebug is now everything runs, I don't know, 10, 20x slower. So now your test suite that takes 10 minutes runs in 30. Great.
Oh yeah.
Right on those things. Also, more memory.
Yes, we can all set up a debug proxy. Call to another service.
Figure it out, but
Xdebug is fine. fine, it's just,
When it's working,
well, often too, like I wanna be doing stuff in a Docker container, it's like, I have to have 2 versions of every container, one with xdebug, one
yeah,
without.
that's true. Turning on and off is nice.
I use the environment variable to pull it off in my Docker code, like when it's initializing the container.
Right, then I have to
Looks to see if
rebuild my
it's
container every time I want to debug version.
correct, yeah.
So I just here used, just did a quick sanity check, but I reinstantiated that memcache variable like earlier, tried to dump the memcache property on the memcached object, and it says you can't access it. But then again, you prefix it with sudo, and you can then see protected properties and access protected methods and stuff with the sudo prefix. Cheating?
I'm assuming that's using the magic of the reflection stuff too.
Oh, it's got, yeah. I haven't looked too in depth under the hood, but it's got to do like the other reflection stuff. So back to where we were.
I used that hack that you showed us in production that you get into the private stuff. I'm trying to test a private function from a unit test. So I was like, I don't need to make it public. I want to keep it private, but I also want to convert a unit test.
Yeah.
I switched it. Just for the test.
Why? Okay, let's try this again.
Next month I'll do one on how to set up XML.
That's not that one. Just try and do it in like every editor possible.
Xdebug under 5.
Yeah.
Goes and raced against the clock.
Let's try it. Okay, there's actually, this might be part of the issue, is there's a, oh, I don't have the code open.
I like this breakpoint though, because sometimes I'll breakpoint an XDebug and then I'll go into like the built-in PHP REPL that XDebug gives me, but
Yeah.
you don't get all the nice commands and doesn't like print out any of the stuff like you said. So
Right, and to the earlier question about like die and dump, and you can totally just die and dump here, but all you're gonna get is that single or whatever two things you dump. You have no interactivity. You can't see what maybe the line before that actually the variable before that beat was. So this is again very powerful for debugging in general.
even in there, will it run like in a web browser? Like if it was something you, okay.
That's what I was saying earlier, is if you run it in the web browser, it has no way of then becoming a shell from there. I believe it would, yeah. I'm not actually sure now. It's been a while since I tried that.
Wasn't sure if it was like accidental, sometimes in like JavaScript, you leave your debugger in, like it doesn't actually break unless you have like the console open.
No. I do not remember where that was in the documentation. Installation. That's what I just said. Usage, that's probably where it is. There we go. So let's try this instead. So same spot as before, but we're going to try slightly different syntax. What did I do? Okay. So the what I did earlier, that eval sh, that's a shorthand for basically this right here. It's a shorthand for this statement here. I'm using the slightly elongated version with, we're going to pass in this to the what this is at the time to this and see if we can access it that way. I'm not 100% sure if that's gonna work. Again, we've stopped at line 65. ls this, not useful. This, there we go. Now we have access to that. We can ls this shell or not.
Do we know if that's private? Did we find out?
Where did you dump it?
Dump it. Just like
It shouldn't be.
far dump.
No, just dump. Just dump is a Scishow.
It just yeah.
How many properties?
That's long.
That's what the L, but that should just show us. No. Okay, okay, maybe that's our problem. Sudo. Oh, stat. Okay, whatever. Stat. Okay.
There you go. Sudo doesn't work with LS.
Yeah. So sudo doesn't work with ls, but we can sudo copy the stash to another variable, and then that variable is now public and accessible. I was going somewhere with this originally, and now I forget. Well, that was an unintentional problem that we couldn't. Yeah, exactly. I don't know where that was.
The one thing though is, so once you go into debugger or whatever, there's no way to, how do you?
You just type exit and it keeps running down the code.
I think it breaks out of there. It doesn't continue after that.
Which run? Go back and type exit.
No, it does keep running. That's right.
But there's no way to add any new grid points.
Wait, hold on. What happened there?
That is the same breakpoint.
Yeah.
Traits.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. It's gonna loop over it.
Hitting exit.
Yeah, good point. And now it's getting stuck. And verbose doesn't really give us anything out of that. It is.
We never spelled that code to do it.
Well,
Do
it's really not that different from having to check the box in your editor. It's just no way to add the existing breakpoints once you, to add additional once you start.
Right.
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just questioning this, how much better this is than, something like a board dump, because you still have to go and cut that code out before you hit it, right?
Well,
Yeah,
I think
well-
the big difference is though, if you bar dump and forget, and there's 4 variables and only do one of them, here you can get them all.
Okay.
Yes, if you var dump, so if you accidentally have a var dump in, like that could potentially leak information. So I would suppose this is a little more secure in that if you left this in the code, then it's not going to just start spitting out information to the browser or something.
Yeah.
So I didn't even think of that. It's just
Marginally better.
right. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if you use PHP-CS, of course, you can also
That's
you're never going to have this in production code, so it's less, the var dump you're not using there, but.
Laravel at die and dump won't, in production, won't actually trigger, right? It's like a no-op.
I think you're right, but that's only because they specifically built it that way.
Use the official backup.
Yeah. If you still var dump, it's going to just spit it out.
No-op.
Like any good tool, there's a lot of configuration under the hood that you can do. You can have per project configuration by adding this .psysh.php file. I just got a couple quick ones here. You can customize your prompt and add a startup message. So I've got Kirby, and I'm randomly generating a string from some quotes from, do you know the movie? Come on, you know the movie. It's an easy movie. There you go. But yeah, every time I should get a new quote or pseudo-random. And Kirby's our shell. Debug 2001: A Space Odyssey. Another powerful feature is you can add custom commands to your SciShell instance. So I've got this hello world command here. Let's take a look at that. Yeah.
I'm guessing that's how the other projects.
Almost certainly, yeah. Add their own custom stuff to it. And yeah.
These are Symfony.
So you extend the sci command object class. And then, yes, it uses the Symfony console component for its configuration. So I've just got a simple hello world one here. Set the name of the command to hello. It accepts an input argument called someone. It is a required argument. This is some, like, what is the description of that argument. I don't think I finished writing whatever that was supposed to be, description, and some help text. And then you define an execute method and do what you want when it executes. So we're just gonna execute hello someone, and give it some styling here. So back to our shell, run our shell. In help, we should have this new hello. There it is. Yep. Hello. Oh, okay. So there's the text I forgot to add. And we can type hello.
Right.
azPHP. I don't think I even need the quotes. Ray. But obviously that's a very simple contrived example. You can get really powerful with that in your custom commands. There's just a quick show you. You have a ton of configuration options in here, most of which are very sane defaults you'll probably never touch, but got a long list of configuration documentation there to see what they all do. And if you need to, you can even turn off tab completion if you are a masochist. I don't know. I think we're nearing the end of what I got.
Where am I?
Show where you are in the code. I don't use that one. Yeah, I think it's like where so when you do the die and dump and you start doing stuff, it can tell you where that's coming from. So this is just the SciShell code itself, but I'm pretty sure if we went back and did that test, yeah. I think it's just gonna give us that exact same thing we just saw. Is there any main ones we didn't go up? Throw up actually throws the exception out of the shell. I don't know if I've really used that one much. If you're working with input buffers, output buffers, that'll help you clear that out. Edit, open external editor afterwards, get code in input buffer. Interesting. So I think that'll dump you to an external editor, let you do stuff in that editor, like write some code in there, and then so if you need to do more than like a single line or two worth of stuff, and you can do it in an external editor, save and close that, and then it'll come back to the shell, evaluate that code from your editor, and continue.
That was a really nasty one-liner.
Oh God, yeah,
That would be awesome.
right. History. There's this really powerful command exit that just quits out of that, but we're in a loop, of course. Are there any specific questions at this time?
Can you step your code?
I'm honestly not entirely sure. I've never really tried to step it.
That is really just like,
Yeah, no, there's no way to.
you can't run that line.
Yeah, I can't tell it just, yeah, go to the next line to my knowledge. But I mean, you could obviously like copy, paste, or if needed to. What's that?
It's not step.
Yeah, not, yeah. That'd be pretty crazy if you could do that.
Literally for inspecting the code at a specific state.
Yeah. When you, yeah, run your code up to a point, you've built up variables, stored stuff, who knows. Now you want to see what that snapshot is at that time.
So once you know where a problem exists, then it's definitely more useful versus when you're still trying to troubleshoot where the problem might be.
Yeah. At least in my experience, you've got to have kind of an idea of where it's happening, where the problem, or at least where it started at least, and you can go from there.
Okay.
Do you use it for debugging more? Like I use it more for like goofing around and like testing out code, like before, like to avoid like going and refreshing the page 5 times and like seeing like I'll go in and like the code.
I'll be honest, my go-to is a die and dump usually. Occasionally I'll come to a weird problem and be like, maybe I can use Sai Shell for this, but it's not an everyday thing. I use Tinker a lot, but yes, you're right, it's more for like goofing around, not goofing around, but yeah, just yeah, something, yeah, running some queries or I don't know.
Yeah, I've been really happy with XP Book. Apparently it's mixed feelings, but
Trying to make you think, is
that's
any?
the only thing I love to yell at developers about is like I see dying dump commands, I'm like, no, you're not using XP Book. Yeah.
I have set up Xdebug a dozen times in the past and use them for a day or two, and then it either breaks or I forget about it, or something happens, switch environments. I don't know. No,
Give up on it.
I have not given Storm any serious go. I've a long time ago I used to use IDEs and like no really good one, but like I got to Sublime at one point, used that for a long time, went to Atom for a long time. In the last month or two, switched over to VS Code, which at least has an okay Xdebug plugin, but haven't used it a lot.
Listen for debug Xdebug all the time, and whenever I hear it's got a breakpoint, like dude. With a conditional breakpoint, you tell it to only break here if this variable is undefined or something like that's amazing. If you got to loop through database objects and one of them somewhere is malformed, you gotta like hit the loop like 45 times to put it your object. Just right click and you tell it to only break when it's that equals some condition.
One of my biggest hurdles to using Xdebug regularly is a lot of my projects I use are in Docker. So then each one then needs its own configuration and to like forward ports and do all that. And I've done it and then just don't keep up with it. Keep doing it in every new project and all the old ones. I would, yeah, if there was like an easy 1 or 2 click install Xdebug, I would probably use the shit out of that.
It used to be really good. You was able to do a PHP footnote, copy, paste that into their little wizard, and give you the steps to get Xdebug out of that.
What is it? And just
On Xdebug, their website.
Huh. Interesting.
A few years ago, at least.
I have to look into that quick Xdebug configuration.
You definitely can use the Docker stuff for it too. I goofed around for a weekend or whatever, figured out. I just copy and paste it between all the projects.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have Xdebug.
It
Yeah.
only take 5 minutes, so we'll have to do something else first.
We can get to drinking earlier.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just a little more complicated with Xdebug if you're debugging not one Docker container, but
Oh, for sure. I have a very
20
simple,
at once.
a single.
So that's-
container.
It's
Single
doable.
PHP.
Yeah, go set up a proxy server to go.
Again, this is Sai Shell by Justin Heilman. He's graciously made this and given it to the world for free. Yay, open source. I'm Chris. I'm on Twitter at Flack, PHLAK. What about the mustache? That's not a real mustache.
Let's debug your test.
Okay, all right, yeah. Okay, let's see.
What is PHP units? Does it have a way to print out the names of the?
Yeah, dash debug.
Okay. All right, exit. All right. Redis test returns false.
The one that's not working.
All right. Returns false from expired item. We had to do the longhand one. Crap, what was the longhand one again?
I was called psych. I didn't know.
SH to me is shell, so I'm always Sai Shell. That's what I call it. Sai SH, I guess. I don't know. We'd have to ask what the official pronunciation is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Sai Shell.
I think so. So,
Is that the first test for Redis?
yeah, this is the main Redis test class. No, this.
Blowing up on your Ethernet?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm using the. I think that might do it. Well, now I'm dying. Yeah. Yeah, I could do that. That's great. Yeah. Yay. Thank you, Sai Shell, even though.
That was Joshua.
Josh Shell. Anything else? Okay. Do you need the computer for